The mining fields of Zerath 4 stretched wide under a dark red sky. The air shimmered with heat rising from the planet's crust, and giant drilling towers punched into the ground like spears. Every day, workers extracted rare minerals for the Galactic Union, minerals that powered fleets and cities across the stars. Most of the workers here were aliens, species with strong exoskeletons, long limbs or multiple eyes that helped them work in the dangerous tunnels. Only a few humans worked among them. Humans were new to the Union, strange newcomers who still confused many older races. Among the human workers was Lieutenant Marcus Hale, a tall, broad-shouldered man with sharp eyes and an easy smile. He wasn't a miner by trade. He was a soldier, sent here to help oversee safety operations after a series of collapses in the tunnels. Marcus had seen battlefields, deserts, and frozen planets in his time. To him, working in a mine was almost peaceful. That peace did not last. The day began like any other. Marcus walked with a team of engineers into one of the deep shafts. The walls glowed faintly from mineral deposits, and machines hummed as they drilled into the stone. Alien workers clicked and hissed to each other in their native tongues. "Keep your helmets on, stay sharp," Marcus reminded them. His voice echoed in the tunnels. The workers respected him. He was strict but fair, and he always volunteered to go into the risky areas himself. Some aliens even began to admire him, though most whispered behind his back about how fragile humans must be. Then, the warning alarms blared. A tremor shook the tunnel, sending dust and small rocks raining from the ceiling. Marcus's eyes darted upward. Cracks spread through the stone like lightning. "Collapse. Everyone out," he shouted. Aliens scrambled for the exits. Marcus stayed behind, pushing one worker who had frozen in fear. He grabbed another by the arm, dragging them toward safety. The tunnel groaned, a sound like thunder, and then the ceiling gave way. Rocks the size of starships crashed down. The floor shook violently. Marcus shoved the last alien worker through the exit, but before he could follow, a huge slab of stone broke loose above him. He raised his arms instinctively. Too late. The world went black. When Marcus opened his eyes, everything hurt. He couldn't move. Dust filled his lungs. His helmet visor cracked, sparks flickering across the screen. Heavy stone pressed down on his body. For a moment, he thought this was it. But then he heard voices. Alien voices calling out. The rescue teams had come, humans still alive. Impossible. His vitals show weak signals. Wait, no, stronger than expected. Move these rocks, quickly. Hands, clawed, scaled, and gloved, pulled stones away from his body. Light broke through the dust, and Marcus blinked against it. Slowly, painfully, they dragged him out of the rubble. He was alive. Barely. The medical ship orbiting Zerath 4 was equipped with the finest alien technology. Marcus was rushed inside, laid on a floating medical bed and surrounded by alien doctors of different species. Machines scanned him, lights flashed, and voices overlapped. The results made them freeze. 17 broken bones, one doctor whispered, his antennae twitching in disbelief. Multiple fractures in arms, ribs, and legs. Spinal strain. Organ bruising. Another readout. He should be unconscious. He should be in shock. "No one survives this." Marcus slowly turned his head, groaning. His vision was blurry, but he saw the wide eyes of the alien doctors. He realized they were staring at him as if he had already died. With a weak grin, he muttered, "Oh, that. Guess I'll need a cast." The room went silent. The aliens stared. Not one of them could understand how a being with such injuries could smile or joke. Word spread quickly through the station. Nurses whispered to technicians. Technicians whispered to guards. Soon every alien aboard had heard the story. The human with 17 broken bones who only said, "Oh, that." For most alien species, pain was unbearable. A single broken limb required heavy sedation. 2 or 3 broken bones often sent them into life-threatening shock. And here was a human lying broken on the table, laughing as if he had tripped over a chair. Doctors argued with each other, trying to explain the impossible. Perhaps his nervous system is damaged, he cannot feel pain. No, his brain scans show normal activity. He feels everything. Then how is he not screaming? Maybe humans are insane. Marcus, half-conscious, chuckled again when he heard that. Insane, maybe. Hours later, after stabilization, Marcus rested in the recovery ward. His body was wrapped in casts and glowing alien medical seals. Machines worked tirelessly to mend his bones and tissues. Despite everything, his heart rate remained calm. A young alien medic named Tivra stood beside his bed watching him. She belonged to a species known for their fragile bodies. If one of her kind had suffered half his injuries, they would already be gone. "You do not fear this?" Tivra asked carefully, her voice musical. Marcus opened one eye. "Fear what?" 17 broken bones. Your insides damaged. Pain levels beyond tolerance. Yet you smile, he shrugged, or at least tried to. "I've had worse days. Pain comes, pain goes. What matters is I'm still breathing." Tivra tilted her head, trying to understand. "My people, we avoid danger. Even small wounds terrify us. You humans, you walk into danger, and when crushed by it, you laugh." Marcus gave her a small grin. "That's about right." Later that night, alien doctors gathered in a private chamber. Screens floated around them, filled with Marcus's medical data. His bones looked like shattered glass. His muscles were torn, his organs swollen, yet his recovery signs were stronger than predicted. "This cannot be ignored," one doctor said. "Humans are different, stronger than they appear. If this spreads to the Union, it will cause chaos. Imagine what other species will think of them." Another doctor, older and wiser, leaned forward. "We must study them, quietly. This human is the first proof that their kind may not be fragile newcomers, but survivors. Survivors of the impossible." Back in his bed, Marcus stared at the ceiling. His body ached with every breath, but his mind was clear. He thought about the workers he had saved, about the slab of stone that almost ended him, and about the strange stares of the alien doctors. Humans were still strangers in this galaxy. Most species doubted their worth. But Marcus knew something the aliens did not. Humans didn't quit. Even when broken, even when crushed, even when facing death itself, they stood back up. The medical station above Zerath 4 had grown quieter since the collapse. The rescue teams had returned, the mining tunnels had been sealed, and most workers had gone back to their duties. But inside the infirmary, the whispers had not stopped. Everyone was still talking about the human who had survived 17 broken bones. Marcus Hale sat propped up in his bed, his arm in a sling, chest wrapped in white alien bandages that glowed faintly as they worked to repair his ribs. Despite the pain, he looked calm, even amused. He had already begun asking for coffee, something the medics didn't even know how to brew. Nurse Tivra stood nearby, holding a datapad. Her large silver eyes blinked at him in disbelief. "You should not be speaking," she said softly. "You should be resting," Marcus smirked. "Talking never killed anyone." She tilted her head. "Your body was close to failure. 17 broken bones. Any other species would be gone." "Yeah," Marcus said, leaning back. "But I'm not any other species." The alien doctors had gathered around a large projection table in the next room. Holographic displays showed Marcus's scans in detail: shattered bones, torn muscles, internal bruises. The doctors, belonging to at least 6 different species, argued in sharp tones. This human should not be alive. Look, at his pain tolerance levels, they are absurd. Perhaps his species modified themselves genetically before joining the Union. No, I've studied human biology. They are not engineered, they are natural. A tall insect-like doctor named Dr. Koresh tapped the hologram with one long claw. Pain signals at these levels would drive a Thrin mad. Yet his brain shows only mild stress responses. Instead of collapsing, he joked. "This is not just endurance. This is something else," another doctor hissed. "If humans can withstand this much, what happens when they fight wars?" The room went quiet at that thought. Back in his ward, Marcus noticed the stares whenever a medic walked by. They looked at him as if he were some strange creature out of legend. Some whispered, thinking he could not hear. "Is he dangerous?" "No, but maybe unpredictable. I heard humans once lived on death worlds. Maybe that is why." Marcus ignored most of it. He had grown used to the whispers. Humans were the newcomers to the galaxy. Always underestimated, always doubted. To him it was almost funny. When Tivra returned to check his vitals, Marcus asked, "Why are they looking at me like I grew horns?" She hesitated, then spoke honestly. "Because you frighten them." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I frighten them? I'm the one stuck in a bed." "You joke, but it is true," Tivra said. "Our people fear pain, fear injury, fear even the thought of collapse. You survive with half your body broken. You smile while others would scream. It makes them wonder what humans really are." Marcus gave her a lopsided grin. We're just stubborn, Tivra, that's all. 2 days later, a group of alien officials arrived at the station. They were not doctors or nurses. They were Union observers, sent to investigate the strange human case. Marcus was asked to attend a meeting once he was stable enough to walk. Against the protests of his doctors, he insisted on going. Wrapped in bandages and moving slowly, he entered the conference hall, leaning only slightly on a cane. The room went silent when he appeared. At the center table, Dr. Koresh and other physicians displayed his medical records to the observers. They spoke of his resilience, his recovery speed, and his casual response to unbearable pain. One observer, a scaled reptilian creature, turned to Marcus. Human hail, when the doctors informed you of your injuries, you responded only with the words, "Oh, that. Can you explain why?" Marcus scratched his chin. What's there to explain? Broken bones heal. Pain doesn't last forever. I've had worse in the field. The room stirred with murmurs. Worse? One asked. What could possibly be worse than this? Marcus thought for a moment, then shrugged. Frostbite on Titan colonies. Burning radiation storms on Mercury. Once had my leg crushed during a mech collapse on Mars. Kept walking with a limp until we reached base. The alien stared at him as though he had confessed to being immortal. After the meeting, the observers left troubled. Some whispered about the danger of such creatures entering the Union. Others argued that humans could be valuable allies, too valuable to ignore. The doctors, however, were no longer satisfied with just questions. They wanted proof. That evening, Dr. Koresh approached Marcus's bed. His insectoid face clicked softly as he spoke. Lieutenant Hale, we wish to test your resilience, scientifically. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Tests? What kind of tests? Controlled, Koresh assured him. Simulations of pressure heat toxins within safe limits. We want to know how much the human body can endure. Your accident has raised questions that the Union cannot ignore. Marcus smirked. You want me to play lab rat, huh? Koresh hesitated, then nodded. In a sense, yes. Marcus leaned back, chuckling. Why not? If it helps clear things up, I'll do it. Besides, you'll be surprised how far a human can go. Word spread across the station again, this time not about his injuries, but about the human's willingness to undergo trials voluntarily. Some called it bravery. Others called it madness. Tivra confronted him the next morning. Why agree? They already treat you like a specimen. Now you give them permission to push you further? Marcus looked at her seriously for the first time. Because they need to know, Tivra. Humans are new here. Most of the galaxy thinks we're fragile. If I can prove them wrong, then maybe they'll stop underestimating us. Her silver eyes softened. And if the tests harm you? Marcus gave her a crooked smile. Then I'll just say, oh, that, and keep moving. The next week, preparations began. Specialized chambers were set up. One for pressure tests, another for heat exposure, another for simulated wounds. Union scientists arrived, recording every detail with fascination. Marcus trained lightly in the ward, stretching and walking despite the warnings of his doctors. His bones still ached, but he refused to remain still. Each day, aliens gathered outside the training hall windows, watching with awe as the human with 17 broken bones continued to push forward. Some began calling him a name in hushed voices, the Unbreakable. At night, when the station lights dimmed and the halls grew quiet, Marcus lay in bed staring at the ceiling. He thought about Earth, about the billions of humans back home who lived through storms, wars, disasters, and still carried on. He knew the aliens didn't understand. But they would, soon enough, because for humans, survival wasn't just instinct, it was identity. The medical station orbiting Zerath 4 had turned into something it was never meant to be. Once it had been a quiet place for recovery and research. Now the halls buzzed with whispers. The observation decks were crowded with visitors, and every alien eye was fixed on one man, Lieutenant Marcus Hale, the human who would not break. The Chamber of Pressure. The first trial began in a reinforced chamber deep within the station. The walls were lined with heavy steel, humming softly as alien machines activated. On the other side of the thick glass, doctors and scientists gathered, datapads ready. Marcus stood inside the chamber, dressed in a simple training uniform. His body was still covered with healing seals from his injuries, but his stance was steady. Dr. Koresh's insectoid voice echoed through the speaker. Lieutenant Hale, this chamber will simulate pressure levels equal to the depths of an ocean trench on your homeworld. Are you prepared? Marcus stretched his shoulders. Do your worst. The pressure began to rise. Slowly at first, barely noticeable, then stronger, pressing against his skin, his lungs, his chest. The walls groaned faintly. Most species could endure only a fraction of these conditions before collapsing. Yet Marcus simply breathed deeper, his eyes steady. Minutes passed. The pressure doubled. His muscles strained, veins standing out on his arms. Still, he did not fall. The aliens watching whispered nervously, "Impossible. His bones are still healing. He should already be unconscious." Marcus raised one eyebrow, smirking through the glass. "This all you got?" Koresh stared in disbelief. "Increase levels by 20%. The pressure grew unbearable for even the observers outside, though they were shielded. Inside the chamber, Marcus swayed slightly but stayed upright. He clenched his fists and planted his feet firmly, refusing to kneel. When the chamber finally powered down, Marcus stepped out drenched in sweat, but still smiling. That was fun. When's the next round? The heat trial. The next day, Marcus faced the chamber of heat. The walls glowed red as temperatures soared. To most species, even standing at the entrance would be lethal. Inside, Marcus adjusted the collar of his uniform. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead, but he grinned. Feels like summer in Arizona. The heat rose further, past boiling, past endurance. His skin reddened, muscles tensed, and his throat grew dry. But still he remained standing. He even waved at the horrified scientist watching him through the glass. Tivra, standing among them, gripped her datapad tightly. She whispered, "He is burning alive, yet he..." Jokes. Finally, when the chamber reached maximum levels, Marcus collapsed to one knee. The alarms blared, but before anyone could shut it down, he forced himself up again, teeth gritted. "Not done yet," he growled. The aliens stared in silence as the human refused to yield. When the chamber shut down, medics rushed forward, horrified by his scorched skin and strained heartbeat. But Marcus brushed them aside. "I'll live," he muttered. "Bring me water and let's move on." The trial of toxins. A week later, once his burns healed, Marcus entered another test chamber. This one filled slowly with colored mist, harmless to most species in small doses, but dangerous in higher concentrations. Koresh explained through the comm. "This toxin causes paralysis in most known species within 2 minutes. Do not resist treatment if symptoms begin." Marcus waved casually. "Got it." The mist thickened. His throat burned, his chest tightened. His vision blurred slightly. But instead of panicking, he began humming an old Earth song under his breath. 2 minutes passed. 3. 4. The aliens exchanged frantic whispers. "He should be on the ground by now." Even Thrin warriors fall in half this time. Inside, Marcus coughed, then grinned at the glass. "Is that all?" "I've had worse hangovers." The observers froze. This human, poisoned and weakened, was mocking them. When the test finally ended, Marcus stumbled out but refused to take a stretcher. He waved off the medics. "I'm walking." Not dead yet. Alien reactions by now. Word of the trials had spread far beyond the station. Ships arriving at Zerath 4 carried passengers who came not for trade, but to witness the human. Crowds gathered in the observation decks, watching each trial with wide eyes. Some cheered. Others whispered in fear. Rumors spread through the Union. Humans cannot be broken. Humans laugh at pain. Humans are Death World survivors. In council halls across the galaxy, leaders debated. If humans can endure this much, what else can they do? They may become a danger. Or a weapon. Or the strongest allies we could ever ask for. Marcus and Tivra one evening. After another test, Marcus sat in his ward, sipping a strange alien drink that tasted vaguely like lemon. His arms still shook from exhaustion, but he wore his usual crooked smile. Tivra entered quietly, her silver eyes studying him. "Why do you do this?" "Why endure so much suffering when no one forces you?" Marcus shrugged. "Because it's who we are. Back home, people climb frozen mountains just to see the view. They cross deserts for no reason except to prove they can. We push limits, Tivra, always have." She lowered her gaze. "And what if the galaxy fears you for it?" Marcus looked at her steadily. "Then they'll learn the truth. Humans don't endure because we want to scare anyone. We endure because life always throws pain our way. And we refuse to let it win." Tivra's chest tightened. For the first time, she realized what truly made humans different. Not strength, not skill, but an unshakable refusal to quit. A growing threat, but not everyone admired him. In the darker corners of the station, representatives of rival alien species whispered to each other, "If humans can survive all this, they will be unstoppable in war. We must act before they spread further. They will not be allies. They will be conquerors." Eyes turned toward Marcus with suspicion and fear. Some saw him as a hero. Others saw him as the beginning of a new threat. The attack simulation. The final trial was meant to simulate battlefield injuries. Marcus was placed in a combat chamber where drones fired stun bolts and launched shockwaves. He was armed only with a blunt training weapon. The drones attacked in swarms. Bolts struck his chest, his side, his injured leg. He staggered, groaning, but instead of falling, he roared and charged forward. With each strike, his body faltered, but his will grew stronger. He smashed drones apart with wild, determined swings. The observers gasped. He wasn't just enduring, he was fighting back. When the test ended, Marcus collapsed onto one knee, his chest heaving, sweat pouring down his face. He raised his weapon high, broken but defiant. The aliens in the observation deck fell into stunned silence. The whisper spreads. By the end of the trials, Marcus Hale was no longer just a soldier or a survivor. He had become a legend. Across the Union, whispers spread like fire. The human cannot be broken. Pain is nothing to them. They endure the impossible and rise again. Some called them monsters. Others called them heroes. But all agreed on one truth. Humans were not like the rest of the galaxy. The calm of Zerath V's orbiting station was shattered in the early hours of the morning. Alarms screamed across the medical bay and docking ports. Red lights pulsed, warning everyone of incoming ships. Hostile fleet detected. A young technician yelled. Unknown signature. Weapons armed. The human awakens to chaos. Marcus Hale, still recovering from his previous trials, was resting in the infirmary. His arm was in a reinforced sling, ribs still bruised, legs slightly swollen from past fractures. Yet the alarms jolted him upright. He ignored the protests of the medics. "What's happening?" he asked, voice calm but sharp. Tivra appeared instantly. "Sir, hostile ships are attacking. Weapons are powered. Evacuation orders are being issued." Marcus smirked. "Evacuation? No chance. Let's stop them before they reach the station." The aliens looked at him with shock. Most thought he should remain in the med bay. But Marcus had never been one to hide from danger. The station under fire. Through the observation windows, the invaders appeared, a fleet of sleek black warships, bristling with weaponry. Their approach was fast, precise. Their intent, destruction. Station alarms blared. Automated turrets fired, but many were destroyed immediately. Alien soldiers scrambled, organizing defensive positions. Marcus limped toward the command deck. Despite the pain radiating through his ribs and legs, he grabbed a comlink and barked orders. "Listen up. Focus turrets on the lead ships. Shields at 70%. Evacuate civilians toward the lower decks." The officers hesitated at first, surprised that a wounded human was giving orders. But his calm voice and confident tone inspired them. Slowly they obeyed. Marcus leads the defense. Within minutes, the enemy ships had reached firing range. The first volley of plasma slammed into the outer hull, shaking the station violently. Windows cracked. The floor vibrated. Marcus gritted his teeth, using his cane for support. He moved between turrets, giving instructions, calculating angles of fire. "Fire from this side. Redirect power to shields. Keep them busy." Even the alien soldiers, some twice his size, were amazed at his ability to remain composed under pressure. He was still injured, still in pain, yet he was everywhere at once, directing, calculating, inspiring. The enemy underestimates humans. The invading fleet noticed him on the command deck. One commander, a scaly green creature with a hooked jaw, hissed to his officers, "A single human is leading their defense? He is injured, yet still active. This is unusual." "We can destroy him," another suggested. "No, observe him. He is fascinating." Their curiosity, however, would cost them. Marcus's confidence and quick thinking kept the station alive. He anticipated the attacks, rotated defenses, and even improvised traps using cargo containers and magnetized rails. A close call at one point, A plasma bolt struck dangerously close. Marcus was thrown against a wall, pain shooting through his shattered ribs. Blood trickled down his side. He coughed, tasting iron. Tivra rushed forward. "Sir, you need medical attention!" Marcus waved her off weakly. "Not now. Not when they're still coming." With a grimace, he staggered to the nearest turret. He calculated the trajectory of the next wave of fire and directed the alien crew to adjust the shields. Another strike hit the station, this one farther off, but Marcus remained standing. The alien observers could not believe it. Injured beyond what any of their species could survive, and yet he was still functioning. Still commanding, still fighting. Turning. The Tide Marcus devised a plan. Use the station's magnetic field. Generators to disrupt the enemy ship's navigation systems. Divert all auxiliary power to the magnets, he instructed, ignoring the pain in his arm. We'll push them off course. The turrets fired to hold off attackers while Marcus manually adjusted the controls. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and his ribs burned with every movement. He could feel every fracture complaining, but he pressed on. Minutes later, the enemy fleet wavered. Their ships twisted and spun, unable to maintain formation. The tide had turned. Aliens witnessed human resilience. Soldiers, medics, and even alien leaders began to see the truth firsthand. Humans did not fear pain. Humans did not quit. Humans adapted and overcame even the worst odds. A young alien lieutenant whispered to his companion, How can one being endure so much? They should be dead." Marcus overheard, chuckled through gritted teeth, and said, "Guess we're tougher than we look." It wasn't arrogance. It was fact. Every human on Earth had stories of surviving storms, disasters, wars, and impossible conditions. Marcus was living proof of that legacy. Final confrontation. As the invaders regrouped for a final strike, Marcus limped to a vulnerable section of the station where civilian transports were docked. He set up defensive barriers using crates, magnetic rails, and portable turrets. The enemy ships fired directly at this area, aiming to destroy the humans' escape routes. Marcus threw himself into the middle of the chaos, pulling levers, activating defenses, and giving orders to terrified aliens. A plasma bolt grazed his arm, igniting his sleeve. He yelped but kept moving, extinguishing the fire and continuing to direct the defense. Finally, the last wave of enemy ships was caught in the station's magnetic field. They spun out of control, colliding with one another and drifting harmlessly into space. The station was saved. Civilians were safe, and Marcus, battered and bleeding, had refused to yield. Aftermath: when the battle ended, Marcus collapsed into a medbay bed. His ribs were worse than before, his arm a mess of bruises and burns, but he smiled. "You all did well," he said weakly. "Now, patch me up and I'll see who's next." Tivra shook her head, tears in her eyes. "Sir, you should rest. You are broken, and yet you led them all to victory." Marcus grinned faintly. Broken? Maybe, but not finished. Across the galaxy, word spread quickly. Aliens who witnessed the battle whispered tales of the human who led a defense while shattered. Some were fearful, some were inspired, but all agreed. Humans were not to be underestimated. The Union's new perspective back in council chambers, representatives argued heatedly. The humans, they are too resilient, too cunning. They adapt under impossible conditions. They cannot be fought like others. They could be a powerful ally if we earn their trust, or a dangerous enemy if we provoke them. The term "the Unbreakable" began circulating officially, a title now associated with all humans. Marcus Hale had unknowingly started a legend. Closing thoughts that night, Marcus lay in the med bay, bandages soaked and bruises throbbing. Yet in his mind, he was already thinking about the next challenge. The galaxy would soon realize that humans did not just survive. They thrived under conditions no other species could endure. Pain, injury, and danger were merely obstacles, not endings, and when the galaxy tried to challenge them again, humans would be ready, because no matter how broken, a human would stand back up, Marcus whispered to himself, smiling faintly. 17 broken bones, and still here. Could be worse. The station was quiet now. After the attack, repairs had begun. Automated drones scuttled across the hulls, welding and recalibrating shields. Medics tended to the wounded, alien and human alike. But the most important patient remained Lieutenant Marcus Hale, the human who had endured 17 broken bones and refused to yield. Even in rest, his presence radiated a strange energy. He had survived what no other being could, and now the galaxy was watching. Recovery and recognition. Marcus lay in the med bay, bandages meticulously wrapped, his muscles slowly healing. His arm was still in a sling. His ribs were bruised, but he smiled faintly as technicians checked his vitals. Tivra stood beside him, still amazed. I don't understand how you do it. How do you survive this much pain and still lead? Marcus shrugged, weakly lifting a hand. Pain is temporary. Life isn't. You fight when you have to, you lead when you must, and you keep moving forward. Simple as that. She shook her head. Your species. You are remarkable. I'm just one of many, Marcus said softly. Humans do this every day, survive storms, disasters, war, hardship. I just happen to be in space. Galactic recognition news of Marcus's survival and leadership reached the Galactic Union Council. Members of countless species gathered in formal chambers to discuss what they had witnessed. Reports poured in from the station, from the observing fleets, and from civilian transports saved by Marcus's orders. A reptilian counselor stood and addressed the assembly. What we have seen is unprecedented. A human, gravely injured, led the defense of an entire station while barely able to move. They endured what no other species could survive and inspired every being around them to fight. Murmurs filled the hall. The council debated whether humans should be classified as allies, threats, or something entirely new. One thing was clear. Humans were not fragile, not weak and not ordinary. Another counselor, a crystalline being whose voice rang like a bell, said softly, They do not fear pain, they do not yield, and they do not quit. I have seen many brave species, but none like this. Humans are different. They are unbreakable. The term caught on immediately. Across the galaxy, whispers grew into declarations. The unbreakable. Humans are a force to be reckoned with. Marcus's humble perspective. Despite all the attention, Marcus remained humble. He met with council members, alien reporters, and curious scientists, but never boasted. You call us unbreakable, he said to a crowd of alien journalists, but we're just survivors. You survive storms, fires, collapses, and you keep going. That's all humans do. Nothing heroic, nothing magical, just persistence. Tivra watched from behind him amazed. Even after 17 broken bones and a near-death battle, Marcus's mind was clear, focused on life, not legend. Persistence, she whispered, realizing this was the core of humanity, what made them endure impossible odds and still smile. The human legacy weeks passed. The station was fully repaired. Marcus had regained strength, though he still moved carefully. He trained with alien soldiers not for himself, but to teach them how to adapt, survive, and endure. Stories of his exploits spread to other colonies, to other planets. Humans on distant worlds began to inspire others with tales of courage. Even species that had previously underestimated humans began to take notice. Schools, fleets, and councils discussed the human approach to survival, endurance, courage, and the refusal to give up no matter the odds. One alien commander said quietly to his team, If humans were soldiers in our fleets, no force in the galaxy could stop them. They fight not just with weapons, but with their will. A new respect. Marcus traveled to different Union stations, always recovering, always helping. Wherever he went, aliens paused to watch him work, to see the human who had survived what no other could. He laughed at their reactions sometimes. 17 broken bones, he said with a grin, and you still act like I'm fragile. Some tried to mimic his resilience. Most failed. Humans were not perfect. They bled, they cried, they broke, but they stood back up every single time. Even young aliens learning combat or endurance techniques looked at Marcus as a living example. He was not invincible, but he was unrelenting. Warnings and future tales stories of Marcus and the station battle reached rival alien factions. Some were awed. Others were terrified. If humans endure this much, what happens when they fight? Whispered a commander in a distant quadrant. They cannot be underestimated, said another. Pain does not stop them. Injury does not stop them. Nothing stops them. For the first time, the galaxy understood a simple truth. Humans are survivors, and survival in their hands is a power unlike any other. A quiet moment, one evening. Marcus sat on the balcony of the repaired station, looking out at the red world of Zerath 4 below. Stars glittered in the darkness, ships moving like fireflies in the distance. Tivra approached quietly. Sir, do you ever think about what all this means? For humans, and for the galaxy? Marcus smiled faintly. I think about what we've done, what we've survived. The galaxy will remember, and maybe, they'll finally stop thinking humans are fragile. She watched him. And will you rest now? Marcus chuckled, rubbing his arm. Rest? Maybe, but humans never stop moving. We'll heal, we'll recover, and then we'll be ready for the next challenge. He looked out at the stars again, feeling pain, exhaustion, and triumph all at once. 17 broken bones, near death, and still alive. Still human? Could have been worse, he muttered softly, the familiar grin returning. The legend solidifies. The tale of Marcus Hale became a story told across the galaxy. Books, hollows, and simulations taught young aliens about the human who survived impossible injuries, led a defense while broken, and inspired everyone around him. No one would forget it. No one would underestimate humans again. The Council formally recognized humanity as a species of endurance, courage, and adaptability. Future generations of aliens would speak of them in reverence or in fear. Marcus, for his part, simply returned to his duties, quietly laughing at the attention. To him, it was never about legend. It was about living, surviving, and continuing onward, because that was what humans did best. Closing as the red sun of Zerath 4 dipped below the horizon, Marcus Hale stood on the balcony, bandaged but standing tall. He looked out at the stars, a quiet promise in his heart. No matter how many times humans fell, no matter how broken they became, they would rise again. And in the galaxy, those who had witnessed it would never forget. Humans are unbreakable. Marcus smiled faintly, tilting his head. 17 broken bones. Could have been worse, he said softly, the galaxy watching and learning what it truly meant to be human.